Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're digging into the foundations of business, those core ideas about how organizations actually work, well, it can be a challenge. You've got stacks of notes, complex readings, tons of theory, and you need it. Well, you need it usable now.
And that's exactly what we're aiming for today.
Right.
We're going deep on the real fundamentals of management, the concepts, the processes, the roles, the skills, basically the stuff that's the bedrock of any solid MBA program. We want to get past just definitions and into, what it actually means in practice.
Yeah, we're going to unpack those key definitions, lay out the core management processes. There are five big ones, clarify those different management levels, and really get a feel for what a manager does all day using Mintzberg's famous roles. It's about turning abstract ideas into tools, right? Tools you can actually use. Yeah.
Think of it like getting the essential toolkit for understanding any organization. Before you can really tackle those complex strategies or analyze tricky situations, you need this foundation to be absolutely solid. We want to make sure you grasp not just what these principles are, but why they're so important and how they all, fit together.
Okay, and we have to start with this fundamental tension. It drives pretty much everything else in management. It boils down to two words, simple words, but they get mixed up all the time. Used like they mean the same thing, but they don't. Effectiveness and efficiency. Getting the difference clear right from the start is absolutely critical. It's a daily balancing act for every single manager. So the textbook definition, the one we often start with, is that management is the process of getting things done effectively and efficiently with and through other people. Now, managing the people part is obviously huge, but that first challenge, that constant balancing act, it starts right there. Effectiveness versus efficiency. Good managers, really good ones, they have to nail both.
Exactly. And hitting both is precisely why it's tough. Let's break them down. Effectiveness, well, that's really the big one. It's defined as doing the right things.
Yeah.
It's all about the purpose. Are you achieving the goal your organization set out to achieve?
Okay, so, did we actually launch the product like we planned?
Precisely.
Yeah.
If the goal was launching product X in Europe this quarter, effectiveness is simply, did it launch successfully in Europe? Yes or no. It measures whether you actually hit the target you aimed for.
Got it. So effectiveness is about the goal itself and hitting it. Efficiency then must be about the how you got there.
That's exactly. Efficiency is defined as doing things right. It's all about the resources. It's a ratio, really output versus input. Are you getting the work done with the minimum possible effort, expense, or waste?
Minimum resources. Time, money, people.
Yeah, all of it. Getting the most output from the least input. So back to Product X in Europe. Maybe you launched it great. That's effective. But if you blew the budget by double and missed 3 key deadlines getting there, well, you were pretty inefficient, weren't you?
Okay, so you can definitely win on one and lose badly on the other. What's the real danger there? If a manager just focuses hard on being super efficient all the time.
The danger is, well, you could drive the whole ship onto the rocks while feeling incredibly productive doing it. The classic example, right? An organization gets amazing at lean processes, perfect supply chain, minimizes every bit of waste, super efficient.
Sounds good so far.
But if they're efficiently producing something nobody actually wants anymore, a product the market has moved on from, they're doomed. They're doing things right, technically, but they're doing the absolute wrong thing. They're efficiently producing obsolescence.
Ouch. Okay, so efficiency without effectiveness is pointless, maybe even dangerous.
Totally. And this leads to that idea of this strategic trade-off. Look, the ultimate goal is always do an effective thing in an efficient manner. Do the right thing and do it the right way. But sometimes a manager has to prioritize effectiveness, even if it means sacrificing some efficiency in the short term.
Like in a crisis.
Exactly. A crisis hits a factory fire, a major recall. The manager might have to pull people off routine tasks, spend unplanned money, break normal procedures, all very inefficient actions, right?
Yeah, sounds costly.
It is. But it's done to achieve the primary goal, survival, fixing the problem, saving the brand. That's effectiveness taking priority. A good manager knows when to make that temporary trade-off, when efficiency has to take a back seat to ensure the main objective, the effectiveness, is secured.
So it sounds like efficiency is maybe more of a tactical win day to day, while effectiveness is the strategic win, the long game. You could be super efficient at all the wrong things and still fail completely. The real job is making sure the goal is right, then figuring out how to get there without wasting resources.
You've nailed it. Constant calibration.
Okay, so we've got that core tension, effectiveness versus efficiency. Now let's talk about management itself as a specific skill or discipline. And this is fascinating, the idea that managing is a separate skill, distinct from just being good at the technical technical work. It's ancient. Our sources actually trace it back to Socrates, like 400 BC.
Yeah, it's not a new concept. Socrates apparently recognized that organizing and leading people required a different kind of ability than, say, being a great craftsman or soldier. It's not just knowing how to do the work, but knowing how to get the work done through others. Management is a specific process applied to resources.
And what resources are we talking about? The source material uses this framework, the 7 M's and an I.
Right. It's a classic way to categorize the inputs managers have to work with. It covers the basics. You've got men, meaning the people, human resources, then machine, the technology, the equipment, material, raw stuff, inventory, methods, the processes, the systems you use, and money, capital, finance. Those are kind of the traditional tangible ones.
The industrial backbone stuff?
Exactly. But then, especially today, you have 2 more M's that are huge. Market that's everything external. Customers, competitors, regulations.
The world outside the company walls?
Yep. And maybe the most critical M today isn't an M at all. It's the I. Information, data, intelligence, knowledge. Modern managers spend so much time navigating information flows, dealing with market changes based on data.
So managing is about applying processes to those 7 M's and that crucial I, always aiming for.
Achieving those organizational goals effectively and efficiently. That core tension again.
Okay, which brings up that age-old question you hear in business schools. Is management a science or is it an art? What do the materials suggest?
Well, the consensus really is. It's both. It's definitely got a science component. There's a structured body of knowledge, principles, theories, concepts about motivation, organizational design, finance, strategy built up over years through research and observation. That's the science part. It gives you the models, the frameworks, the tools.
Like blueprints?
Kinda, yeah. But then there's the art component. That's about actually using that knowledge, applying those skills, and your own judgment, your talent in the real world, which is messy, right?
Totally unpredictable sometimes.
Exactly. Think about trying to mediate a really tense conflict between 2 key team members. No textbook gives you the perfect script for that specific situation with those personalities, that history. That takes judgment, empathy, creativity. That's the art of management, applying the science skillfully.
So you need the science, the knowledge, but you also need the art, the skill and wisdom to apply it effectively in complex, unique situations.
Precisely. The discovery of knowledge, the science, informs the use of knowledge, which is the art.
Okay, that clarifies things. So moving from the what is management to the how do managers do it, management is described as a process made up of other processes. 5 core ones, right? Sometimes called POSDC.
That's the classic framework. Planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. They're presented linearly, but in reality, a manager is often doing bits of all of them simultaneously, and it's cyclical.
Let's walk through them, maybe using an example. Say a manager needs to launch a new product globally. First up, planning.
Right. Planning is step 1.
Yeah.
Setting the goals, what do we want to achieve? Maybe capture 15% market share in a new region within 2 years. Then, figuring out the strategy. How are we going to do that? What resources do we need? What are the potential roadblocks? It involves forecasting, budgeting, mapping things out.
Okay, plans in place. Then you need structure. That's organizing.
Yep. Organizing is about taking that plan and building the structure to make it happen. What specific tasks need doing? Who's responsible for what? How do we group these tasks into teams, departments? Who reports to whom? Where does the authority lie? For our product launch, this means setting up the teams, defining the roles, allocating the facilities, the tech.
Structure's built, but it's empty. Need people. Staffing.
Crucial step. Staffing is all about getting the right people in those roles you just defined. Recruiting, hiring, but also training and development, compensation, making sure you have the human talent with the right skills, technical, human, conceptual, needed for that global push.
Got the plan, the structure, the people. Now you need to make it move. Directing.
This is where the day-to-day action really happens. Directing is about influencing and motivating the staff to actually execute the plan. It's so central that it often breaks down into 3 key parts. Leadership providing vision, guidance, motivation creating the conditions where people want to perform well, and communication ensuring everyone's clear on goals, progress, feedback. This is where those human skills are absolutely vital.
Okay, things are moving, but how do you know if you're on track? That must be controlling.
Exactly. Controlling closes the loop. It's about measuring performance. First, you set standards. What does success look like? Then you monitor what's actually happening, track sales, costs, quality, whatever's relevant. Then you compare the actual results to the plan. Are we hitting that 15% market share target?
And if not?
Then you take corrective action. Maybe the plan needs adjusting. Maybe resources need shifting. Maybe someone needs more training. Controlling feeds right back into planning. It's how you ensure you stay both effective hitting the goal and efficient not wasting resources getting there. It's a continuous cycle.
Okay, so POSDC gives us the what managers do. Now let's talk about who the managers are, because not all managers are the same, right? The hierarchy matters, there are different levels, and what's expected of them, the skills they need most, changes depending on where they sit.
Absolutely. There's a very clear pattern. As you move up the management ladder, generally speaking, the need for deep technical skill decreases, while the need for broad conceptual skill increases. We usually talk about three main levels.
Let's start at the peak, the view from the top.
Right. Top managers. These are your C-suite execs,
Yeah.
CEO, COO, CFO, presidents, maybe vice presidents or key directors. They are the strategic leaders. Their focus is the big picture, the overall direction, the long-term health, survival, and growth of the entire organization.
So thinking years ahead, not just next quarter.
It's definitely 5, 10 years out. They deal with complex, often ambiguous problems, major market shifts, big investments, acquisitions, the company's relationship with the outside world, like investors, regulators, the broader economy. They're navigating the external environment more than the internal day-to-day.
Okay. Then below them, you have the people connecting that big strategy to the actual operations.
That's the middle managers. Think department heads, division managers, plant managers. They're the tactical bridge. Their key job is translating those broad, long-term strategic goals from the top into specific, concrete objectives and plans that the people below them can actually work on.
So they take the vision and make it actionable.
Exactly. Historically, maybe they were seen more as just administrators, controllers. But today, their role is much more dynamic. They often act like internal consultants, coordinating projects that cut across different departments, solving practical problems to make sure the strategy actually works on the ground. They need a mix of skills.
And then right on the front lines.
First-line managers, sometimes called operational managers, titles like supervisor, team leader, foreman, office manager. These are the folks who directly oversee the employees doing the actual work, making the product, delivering the service. Their focus is very short-term. Today, this week, this month.
Making sure the trains run on time, basically.
Pretty much. They're focused on execution, efficiency, making sure daily targets are met, dealing with immediate problems. They're closest to the actual work and the non-managerial employees.
Okay, 3 distinct levels, 3 different focuses.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the skill shift, too. Let's break down those core management skills.
There are 3 key types, and really any successful manager needs some proficiency in all 3, but the emphasis changes depending on their level.
First one, technical skill. This sounds like knowing the actual job being done.
It is. It's the job-specific knowledge and techniques. If you're supervising coders, you need to understand coding. If you're managing accountants, you need to grasp accounting principles. This is most critical for first-line managers. Why? Because they have to train new employees, answer technical questions, troubleshoot problems on the spot, and evaluate the work of the people actually doing the job.
Makes sense. You can't supervise what you don't understand. What's next?
Human skill. This one sounds simple, maybe, but it's incredibly important, and often where managers stumble.
Just being good with people.
It's more than just being nice. It's the ability to understand, lead, motivate, communicate effectively, work in a team, resolve conflicts. It involves emotional intelligence. And the key thing here, it's critical at all levels of management.
All levels, even the CEO.
Absolutely. The CDO needs to manage their executive team, deal with the board, inspire the entire company. A middle manager needs it to coordinate between departments. A first-line supervisor needs it to handle their team dynamics. If the human skill isn't there, that directing function we talked about just falls apart.
Okay. Technical, human. What's the third?
Conceptual skill.
Yeah.
This is the ability to think analytically, to see the big picture.
The strategic thinking part.
Exactly. It's about understanding how all the different parts of the organization fit together, how the organization relates to its environment, diagnosing complex problems, seeing connections others might miss. It's about making sense of ambiguity and making sound judgments, especially about the future. This is most critical for top managers. They're dealing with strategy, market forces, long-term threats, and opportunities, things that require abstract systems thinking, not just operational know-how.
So as you go up, less hands-on technical, more big picture conceptual, but always needing that human touch.
That's a great summary.
All right, we've got the process, POSDC, the levels, top, middle, first line, and the skills, technical, human, conceptual. But what does a manager's day actually look like? This is where Henry Mintzberg's work comes in, right? He famously studied what managers really do, minute by minute.
Yeah, Mintzberg's research was groundbreaking because it moved away from those neat functional boxes like planning and looked at the chaotic reality. He found managers' days are fragmented, full of interruptions, brief interactions. They're constantly switching gears. He identified 10 specific roles they play, grouped into 3 broad categories.
10 roles. Okay, let's break them down. What's the first category?
The first group is interpersonal roles. These roles arise directly from the manager's formal authority and position, and they're all about dealing with people.
Okay.
Well, first there's the figurehead. This is kind of the symbolic head, performing ceremonial duties, signing documents, greeting visitors, attending employee award ceremonies. It's about representing the unit or organization formally.
The necessary appearances. What else?
The leader role. This is much more active. It's about motivating your team, coaching them, setting the tone, managing performance, hiring, training. This is where you're directly influencing your subordinates to achieve goals.
Using those human skills we talked about.
Absolutely. And the third interpersonal role is liaison. This is about building and maintaining a network of contacts outside your own team or unit. Interacting with peers in other departments, suppliers, clients, regulators. It's about connecting your unit to the wider environment.
Okay, figurehead, leader, liaison, all about people. What's the next category?
Informational roles. This category focuses on the manager as a nerve setter for information, receiving it, processing it, transmitting it.
So handling the I from the 7 M's and I.
Exactly. First, the manager acts as a monitor. They're constantly scanning the environment, reading reports, attending meetings, talking to contacts, to gather information about what's happening both inside and outside the organization, looking for changes, problems, opportunities.
Being the eyes and ears. Then what do they do with that info?
They act as a disseminator. They share relevant information gathered from outside or from higher up with people inside their own team who need it, passing on crucial updates, policy changes, market intelligence.
And sometimes they need to share info outwards.
Right, that's the spokesperson role. Transmitting information about their unit or the organization to outsiders, presenting plans to upper management, briefing the press, lobbying regulators, speaking at industry conferences, representing the unit to the external world.
Monitor, disseminator, spokesperson. Handling the flow of information. That makes sense. It already sounds like a lot to juggle.
Oh, it is. And Mintzberg's point was that managers often play multiple roles even within a single conversation. It's incredibly dynamic, which leads us to the final category where the manager actually makes choices.
Decisional roles. This sounds like where the real action is.
It's definitely high stakes. First is the entrepreneur role. This isn't just starting a company. It's about initiating change and improvement within their area of responsibility, identifying opportunities, launching new projects, finding ways to adapt and innovate, being proactive.
Okay, driving change. But sometimes change is forced upon them, right?
That's the disturbance handler role. This is the reactive part, dealing with unexpected crises, conflicts, problems that demand immediate attention. A strike, a major customer complaint, a breakdown in the supply chain. Putting out fires
Kind of stressful.
can be very stressful.
Yeah.
Then, perhaps the most fundamental decisional role, the resource allocator. This is about deciding who gets what. Budget approvals, staffing decisions, assigning equipment, scheduling their own time. These choices determine what actually gets done.
Holding the purse strings, essentially.
And the project priorities, yeah. Finally, the negotiator. Managers spend a surprising amount of time negotiating with bosses, with employees about raises, with suppliers on contracts, with other departments over resources or deadlines. Reaching agreements is key.
Wow. Figurehead, leader, liaison, monitor, disseminator, spokesperson, entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, negotiator, 10 roles. It really highlights how complex and multifaceted the job is, not just sitting in an office planning.
Not at all. It's a constant juggling act, switching between these roles constantly throughout the day.
And that juggling act is only getting harder, isn't it? The world changes so fast. Globalization, technology, information overload. The kind of manager who succeeded 50 years ago might struggle today. Let's talk about how the role itself is evolving. How does the traditional manager compare to the contemporary one?
It's a pretty stark contrast, actually. It reflects a fundamental shift in the business environment, from relative stability and predictability to constant flux and complexity.
So what did that traditional manager look like? The old school boss?
Well, they definitely thought of themselves as the manager or the boss. Authority was key. They operated strictly within the formal hierarchy. Follow the chain of command. Don't step outside your box.
Information was power.
Absolutely. They often hoarded information, knowledge was kept close to the vest. They usually focused on mastering one specific discipline or function. And often, there was a big emphasis on demanding long hours, valuing face time, and visible effort.
Right, the industrial model. Clock in, clock out,
Yeah.
follow orders. That clearly doesn't cut it anymore in many places. So what defines the contemporary manager?
The mindset is totally different. They tend to think of themselves more as a sponsor, a coach, or maybe an internal consultant. They empower rather than just command.
And the hierarchy.
Less rigid. They're much more likely to deal with anyone necessary to get the job done, regardless of formal lines on the org chart. They build networks, collaborate across boundaries. Speed and agility often mean bypassing the formal chain when needed.
What about information and skills?
Big shift there, too. Instead of hoarding information, they actively share it. They see transparency and involving others in decision-making as strengths. And rather than deep expertise in just one area, they aim for broader understanding across multiple managerial disciplines, seeing the connections between finance, marketing, operations, HR.
And the focus on hours?
Less about long hours, more about demanding results. It's about outcomes, effectiveness, holding people accountable for achieving goals, not just for being busy. Building relationships and trust is key to enabling that.
Okay, that sounds much more adaptive. But let me push back a little. When managers start acting like consultants and, bypassing the chain of command, doesn't that risk creating confusion? Maybe even chaos? Who's actually in charge? How do you maintain control or security?
That's a really valid point, and it is the inherent tension in the contemporary model. You're trading some level of traditional control for speed and agility. It absolutely requires a high-trust environment and a really strong communication infrastructure.
So it's not just about the manager changing, the whole organizational culture has to support it.
Exactly. You can't just drop a contemporary manager into a rigid traditional hierarchy and expect it to work perfectly. The systems have to support collaboration and information sharing. And the manager needs excellent judgment, knowing when to bypass the chain, how to share information appropriately, filtering the noise, ensuring coordination doesn't break down entirely. It's not anarchy. It's about enabling faster, smarter, more decentralized action where appropriate.
Okay, so this shift demands new skills, new competencies that maybe weren't as critical before. What are the key ones now?
The source materials highlight 3 critical areas for state-of-the-art management. First, collaboration. And not just within the team, but across functions, across different levels, even collaborating with customers and sometimes competitors or partner companies. Problems are too complex now for siloed thinking.
Makes sense. Complex problems need diverse perspectives. What's second?
A culture of experimentation and learning. The pace of change is so fast, you can't possibly plan perfectly for everything. So organizations need to be willing to try things, experiment, learn quickly from what works and what doesn't. Managers need to create that psychological safety where people feel okay taking calculated risks and admitting failure so everyone can learn.
Moving away from blaming towards learning. Okay, and the third?
It links back to what we just discussed. Knowledge and information sharing. It's not enough just to not hoard information. Contemporary managers need to actively build systems and cultures where knowledge flows freely, making data accessible, encouraging people to share insights, ensuring lessons learned in one part of the organization benefit others. They become knowledge facilitators, not gatekeepers. So pulling all this together, the process, the roles, the evolving skills, it's important to step back and realize something fundamental about management as a field of study.
What's that?
There isn't one single unified theory of management that everyone agrees on or uses all the time. It's not like physics where there were immutable laws.
Right. Given how different organizations are, a hospital versus a tech startup versus a government agency, it kind of makes sense that a one-size-fits-all approach wouldn't work.
Exactly. What we have instead is a landscape of different management approaches or theories, each offering a different lens, a different set of tools, often developed in response to the challenges of a particular era. Understanding this landscape gives managers a richer toolkit.
Okay, so what are some of the major landmarks in this landscape? Where did it start?
Well, the classical approach is really the foundation, emerging during the Industrial Revolution. It was all about rationality, efficiency, structure. You had people like Frederick Taylor focusing on scientific management, finding the one best way to do a task, optimizing workflows for maximum output, very focused on efficiency at the individual job level.
The time and motion studies kind of stuff.
Precisely. And then others like Fayol and Weber looked at the overall organization, administrative management, focusing on clear structures, hierarchies, rules, bureaucracy, as a way to achieve efficiency and control on a larger scale.
Very mechanical view. What came next? A reaction to that.
Yes, the behavioral approach. Starting around the 1920s and 30s, researchers like those involved in the Hawthorne studies realized, hey, people aren't just cogs in a machine. They started focusing on human factors, motivation, group dynamics, leadership styles, attitudes. It brought the men, or human element, and those human skills right to the forefront.
Recognizing people matter.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Then you have the management science approach, sometimes called operations research. This uses quantitative methods, mathematical models, statistics to help managers make better decisions, particularly around complex optimization problems like scheduling, inventory control, resource allocation. It's like taking the efficiency focus of the classical school, but applying much more sophisticated math.
Bringing in the numbers.
Right. Then there's the system approach. This views the organization not as separate departments, but as an integrated whole, a system made up of interrelated parts that function together and interact constantly with their external environment. It emphasizes inputs, transformation processes, outputs, and crucial feedback loops. It forces managers to think about how actions in one area ripple through the entire organization.
Seeing the connections.
Exactly. And perhaps the most dominant perspective today, which kind of integrates many of these ideas, is the contingency approach.
Contingency, meaning it depends.
That's the core idea. It argues there is no single best way to manage in all situations. The most effective management style, organizational structure, or control system is contingent upon the specific situation factors like the organization's size, its technology, the stability of its environment, the nature of the task.
So a manager needs to diagnose the situation first, then choose the right tool or approach from the toolkit.
Precisely. It emphasizes flexibility and adaptability. It provides the rationale for why management is both a science, knowing the different approaches, and an art, choosing and applying the right one skillfully.
And all this leads into the contemporary management theories we touched on, dealing with globalization, information tech, constant change. It really highlights that management isn't some fixed set of rules. It's dynamic, always evolving.
Absolutely. The challenges keep changing, so the thinking about how best to manage has to keep changing too. Hashtag out to your O.
Okay, that was a really thorough tour through the foundations of management. We started with that crucial difference: effectiveness, doing the right things, versus efficiency, doing things right, and how vital it is to balance both. We walked through the 5 core management processes: planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling the POSDC cycle.
Yeah, and we looked at the different layers of management, top, middle, and first line, and how the required skills shift from technical at the front line to conceptual at the top, with human skills being essential all the way through.
Then we dove into the reality of the manager's day, with Mintzberg's 10 roles, the interpersonal, informational, and decisional hats they wear constantly. And we contrasted that traditional control-focused manager with the more collaborative, empowering contemporary manager needed today, highlighting those key competencies: collaboration, experimentation, and knowledge sharing.
So you should now have that solid foundational vocabulary and framework. When you encounter an organizational issue, whether in study or at work, you can start to diagnose it using these concepts. Is this an effectiveness problem? A breakdown in organizing? Is the manager struggling with the liaison role? It gives you a way to structure your thinking.
Absolutely. It's the essential toolkit. So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. Building on everything we've discussed, we talked about the contingency approach, that the best way depends on the situation. And we talked about the rise of hyper-collaboration and instant global information sharing.
Right.
So think about one of those high-pressure Mintzberg roles.
Right.
The disturbance handler, the person who jumps in to fix the crisis. In a world where a crisis can be instantly flagged, analyzed by AI, and potentially solved collaboratively by a distributed global team accessing shared data in real time, how does that specific role change?
Interesting question.
Does the need for a single, heroic disturbance handler diminish? Could that reactive role become more formalized, more about activating predefined collaborative protocols rather than individual firefighting? What happens to management roles when crises can potentially be crowdsourced and solved almost instantaneously? That's a puzzle for the future of management.